is her husband, Dr. Robert Whaley.
I don't suppose many of you were here in the early 50s, so spend a minute trying to explain how Anchorage and the medical practice in Anchorage is so different. At that time, you may remember, those of you who were here, 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue were paved. Everything else was gravel. There was nothing in Northern Lights, it was only forest, and similarly in the Diamond area. We had a little hospital, Providence, 75 beds on L Street, but nobody went to the emergency room when they were sick at night because there were no doctors there. We had an active person in the community of journalists here who railed for years getting us to staff the hospital with doctors. Well, we have now a giant hospital back out in the far woods, or used to be woods, in the southeast Anchorage called Providence. And looking at it, of course, it's very impressive. And it is impressive. When you were sick in the early 50s, you could call your doctor and probably get him on the phone, which you can rarely do now, I'm afraid. Helen represented, when she came, an advent of a big seismic change in the way medicine was practiced in Anchorage. At that time, there were 23 physicians practicing in Anchorage. There are 500 or 600 now, and only 3 women doctors. And part of Helen's drive in the practice of medicine here was not only to have our personal practice, but to educate and encourage other women in the medical field, and she was very supportive of other women doctors, and we have quite a few now. In the 50s, we here in Anchorage got our first pathologist, our first radiologist, our first orthopedist, our first neurosurgeon, and other board-certified specialties. And then, of course, in the 70s, we had subspecialty, and we have the giant medical development that we have now. We had a major polio epidemic in 1954 with people in iron lungs and a number of deaths of both children and adults. But polio is gone now. So is smallpox. We no longer take the stomachs out to cure peptic ulcers. There are very few peptic ulcers now. So there's been a lot of major things that have improved. You can now get new knees and new hips, and you can even have brain tumors removed here in Anchorage, and maybe have your heart fixed. So there's been a major change in the whole atmosphere of medical practice, mostly for the better, I think. Although nowadays, if you go to the hospital, you don't have your own doctor anymore. At least you may not. It used to be nice when your doctor took care of you right all through your hospitalization and after you went home. Helen's practice was unique in that she had 3 major advantages. One, she didn't care a bit about money. She was able to be comfortable without working to achieve it. Secondly, she had no use for fame or power. She was very confident of her own character and her own identity. And thirdly, she had no progeny, so she had no family responsibilities to worry about. And that resulted in a complete dedication to the practice of pediatrics and then later of pediatric neurology. Not noted in her bio was the fact that in '65 we went to Stanford and she matriculated there in pediatric neurology, and although they offered her a staff position at Stanford University Medical School, she agreed to return here with me and established a new situation, a new subspecialty in that field. I think it's illustrative that she developed breast cancer in '68, and her treatment, rather horrendous, resulted in her paralysis below the waist. She practiced in a wheelchair for many months and practiced until 8 days before her death in '71. It's been wonderful.